So I'm on my own and you guys are together?
Yeah.
You guys
That's
typically
different.
do 3? All 3?
No, we usually do 2 people over here and 2 people over there.
2 and 2.
Yeah,
usually,
no
but-
Domingo. Thank God. I purposely ate a onion sandwich, though, in case he was going to be in here.
Just so you can sit next to him. It's a good call. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 28 of the Slightly Serious Sign podcast. This podcast is voted number 1 by GFP, specifically Sam, who's sitting next to me in the video, so you can see him there. So thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.
We
Thanks for
appreciate
having
it. And thank you guys for sticking through 28 episodes of this podcast, which seems kind of crazy. We're past the half a year mark. 26 is half a year, so
28 is a good number.
we've been cruising along pretty
We're
good.
flying along.
At this point, it's kind of crazy. I was just looking. So my next hotel stay, which is in, I think, 2 weeks from when we're recording this, I'll hit 50 nights in the Marriott app. And I don't know what you're at, but I just think together, if we add our nights together.
I just looked at mine. I'm at 92.
So together,
Wow.
we're at 140 nights, and we're only 160-ish days, 170-ish days into the year. And
That's insane.
there
We
was
made
only
this work.
Yeah, and there was only probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks of that were mutual, the same travel. So it's crazy that we pulled it off. I mean, we had to do them separate a few times, but besides that.
Can I ask
it
the
off.
first question? It's not on the list, but I was,
Sure.
as I've been sitting
This
here,
is
I've
what
been
we talked
thinking.
about with Domingo being the wild card.
Yeah.
So we got someone that works here too, but I'm asking the audience, what is the socially acceptable number of cats you can have in one house? My take is 1, maybe 2, but what is the socially acceptable number of cats? So we got a guy here that's Kevin. He was on a couple episodes ago.
Yeah, it'll be 4 episodes ago.
4 episodes ago, who's a big guy, and he loves cats. And Sam loves cats too. So how many do you have, Sam?
We have 2 now, but we had 5 at once.
Yeah,
All
Socially
adopted.
acceptable.
2 might be socially acceptable if there's kids living at home.
I think,
But 5, like Kevin, I think has 4 or something like that, or 5 too. Like,
I think the socially acceptable number of cats is just an equal ratio of adults. If you have 2 adults in your house, and you have 2 cats, that seems socially acceptable. You can both have one cat.
I think that's a good. Let's stick by that rule.
But if it
worldwide.
doesn't apply to kids, like you can't have like 2 for the adults and 2 for the kids. I think that's, if you have 2 kids and you have 4 cats in the house, that's still too many cats.
Actually, if you want to know how many cats somebody owns, ask them how many litter boxes they have, because you're supposed to have, if you have more than 2 cats, you're supposed to have 2 for every cat, or at least 1 extra. So if you have 5 cats, you're supposed to have 6 litter boxes. We had 8 at one time.
8
It would
litter
take me
boxes.
an hour to clean, truly.
I have 2 cats and we've had 1 litter box the entire time. So
Are they both females?
yes,
That helps. If you get a male cat in there, then they like their own space.
I have no litter boxes. I have no cats.
You have a golf course near you. Don't you use that as a litter box?
Yeah, whatever.
so.
Well, we're 6 minutes into boring these guys, so let's get into business.
This is probably low. This is probably low on our intro
Really?
time.
Yeah,
so.
this is usually.
This is a slightly serious podcast, okay?
Yeah, let's get after it. What do you want to ask
Know
me?
is this is free, okay? So if you don't like it, it's still free.
As
so,
well, everything from my mouth is free, and I think
That's true.
you guys will learn a few
That's
things,
true.
or at least some customers will.
So Sam, how? This is the question we ask everyone to start. Who are you? How long you been in the industry, and what's your current role?
My name is Sam Crosby. I've been in the industry for 35 years, and I work for GFP Graphic Finishing Partners as a dealer manager. So I manage the dealers, basically Ohio West. So work with the reps, work with the marketing people, try to help educate them on our brand, competition, market trends, things like that.
How long have you been in the industry?
Well, I've been in the printing industry since I got out of school back in '87. So whatever that is, 40 years.
I was 12.
But yeah, let's not go into age right now.
I won't answer. Defer.
But yeah, I have been selling in and around laminators for almost 30 years, between GBC, a brand that just recently went defunct, and then of course GFP. But I've been selling and worked for vinyl manufacturers, substrate manufacturers. So I've been in and around the signs and graphics and printing industry since really the late 80s, early 90s.
I mean, I think you've been dealing with Wensco for
Yep.
a long, long time now.
Four manufacturers.
That's crazy.
I know it is.
Sam's
insane.
one of our like Wensco wide favorite reps.
When Sam moves,
Like if you took a vote, like who's our favorite reps, Sam's in the top 3 probably.
That's really nice to be the same.
So when Sam moves, we just sign up the manufacturer.
Yeah, wherever he goes, we're going there. Like, okay.
Like we don't even need this,
that's
but
funny.
I guess we'll just sign them up anyways.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out.
You know, going back to old school Wensco, it was the very first time that I actually used inter-industry references to get a job. And I got that job with multi-panel through Rick Mansham back in the day. They didn't have any representation in the U.S. I was in a position where I was ready to leave a job, and it worked out perfect. But unfortunately, it was only a couple of year stint. I really did enjoy working for them, but I know that you guys, lots changed in that side of the business for a while. So, but good people, and really just the industry is just ever evolving, and I've just have found a home, and it feels good and comfortable. And I think now I'm in a position of kind of seniority with as far as industry knowledge and working with the different end users, working with different brands, understanding dealers, who's strong, who's needs some help, whatever. So yeah, it's been good.
I mean, Sam's like the perfect example of what we talk about with this, the sticky business. Once you're in here, you just never get to leave. So
it's true.
He's just been around.
It really is. It's hard to leave the industry. If you ask, I would say 80% of the manufacturer reps stay within the industry, started it, moved on to different positions or different jobs, and they just kind of stay, you know, not a lot of turnover from a new blood, lack of knowledge and lack of industry knowledge.
Yeah. Whenever we see, if you get like a auto response or somebody sends out a message, it's like, yeah, this person no longer works here. Be like,
give it 10 minutes.
Start your clocks. Yeah. How long till we hear from them again?
Yeah, exactly.
It's usually not long.
Give it 10 minutes.
So anyways, you work for GFP. So that's what we're going to talk about today is lamination, bunch of just questions in general.
By all means, let's go.
Laminators. So first thing we'll start with, just going off of kind of what you guys have in your catalog. What is the difference between like a cold and a heat assist laminator?
Well, they're both considered cold, but to get into a true cold only laminator where there's no heat assist, you actually start to sacrifice other things like features, either whether it be a swing out shaft or a rear take up reel, the size of the rollers, the simplicity of the operation. So we have our 200 series, which is our entry level. It is purely cold. It's for maybe the guy that's first getting into laminating for the very first time. They have one printer. They've never finished those graphics. They want to be able to laminate or mount. We've just launched a 20-inch laminator for those customers buying the BN20. And that's a good entry point for those customers to get into something that's at least going to finish their print. They're buying a printer for the purpose of selling stickers, right? Or vehicle graphics or window decals, whatever it is. And it's amazing to me how many people I meet at various open houses or trade show events, and how few people will buy a finishing device to go with their printer. They think that they have everything kind of all in one package with that printer, and to a certain degree, they can sell that finished product. But there's such an advantage to having the ability to put a protective coating on top of it, whether that's liquid or PVC vinyl or whatever it is. And we can get into all the benefits and features of why it makes sense to protect those invested prints that they're generating. But I would say that the majority of the cold laminators that are being sold today have the heat assist feature. And the main reason behind that heat assist feature is driven by a couple of things. One being the print engine. Way back 25, 30 years ago, when everything was printed on paper, you had water-based ink. And water-based inks and paper were not subject to outside. They couldn't last for 5 minutes outside. So they would encapsulate it like a menu that you'd find at a diner, right? Front and back, usually cheap, inexpensive polyester film, gives it rigidity. It protects the ink and the paper from being destroyed from moisture. But as the printer manufacturers have developed improvements to the inks and being able to go outside for a lot longer by themselves, so have the laminators changed. Instead of buying an encapsulation machine, which could run you anywhere between $20,000 and $80,000, you've seen the introduction of a lot of low-end, low-price equipment out there that gives people the ability to protect that print with a cold laminate, get the production out and out the door selling whatever it is, stickers online or with customers locally for doing vehicle graphics. But the benefit that comes with the heat assist is usually driven by the type of print engine, eco-solvent being the main factor. There's a lot of older generation Rolands, Epsons, Mimakis, Mutos that are out there that take 24 hours, or the recommendation for that ink to dry taking 24 hours. And what heat assist will do is it will help minimize or reduce a lot of that dry time in the ink. So you can finish that print, make it look really nice, hand it to a customer, and be proud of what you're giving to them. The thing that also comes with those heat assist models are other features, because I equate it to like almost buying a car 30 years ago. You can walk into a Toyota dealership or a Ford dealership and buy a car, but you're going to get cloth seats if you're buying a base model with roll-up windows, an AM/FM radio, and as
Tyler, do you know what roll-up windows are?
Yep, I do know what roll-up windows are. Barely, but dude, just barely old enough for that part. Yeah,
if you had
well
a
AM/FM radio, actually, to be fair, because that's kind of not super.
They're actually talking about eliminating AM radio.
That makes sense.
Big push by the radio station to keep that in cars. But as you spend more money, you start to get features like leather seats and CD tracks, or now XM satellite radio. And that's kind of where the laminating world has gone. The more you spend, the more features you're going to get. There's a connection between features and productivity, though, and simplicity of use. And for a first-time operator that's never laminated before, I would just say look at the options between a true cold laminator and a heat assist laminator, and then match that to what you're printing with. If you're printing with an eco-solvent printer, you may not want to go just strictly cold, because you get it's called silvering. And it's basically little pockets of air that get trapped between the laminate layer and the ink layer that ultimately, while the ink is starting to outgas, gets trapped. And what the heat will do is it will soften up that adhesive, make it stickier, so that it's more capable of seeking out even wet ink and applying or attaching itself to the wet ink. So you may not 100% reduce silvering, but you're going to see a dramatic change in that from just doing, it's almost like applying by hand versus with a mechanical machine. You ever seen a window tint job where somebody tried to do it by themselves and there's all these little pockets of air trapped between the window and the film? Well, the same principle is held true with eco-solvent or not completely dried ink and laminating it right away. So
besides, when I hear you say that, so besides heat and cold, right? Mm-hmm. That's kind of the main feature. Like when someone reaches out to us and they're asking like, hey, we want to laminate, those are the two features we hear about most, right?
Yes.
Like we're either looking for entry level is usually what they'll say, or heat assist. Those are the two words that we hear. What are the other things that people aren't asking as much about, but maybe they should be in terms of features on a laminator?
Those are good questions. And my answer to that would be to come back with some additional questions for the customer to answer. And that is, what are you printing with? How many printing devices do you have? What kind of clientele do they have? Do they have walk-in customers that want to come back in 3 hours to get their finished graphic for their grandpa's birthday party? Or is it a professional shop that's in an industrial park and they're doing, vehicle graphics by the dozens? I would say get what they're printing with first, what their clientele core base is doing, and what their plans are for the future. One thing we joked that buying a laminator is sort of a necessary evil, right? It's adding cost to the investment of a printer, but really what the laminator does is it protects that investment for giving you longer term graphics outdoors, giving a better product. If you look at a print that's not laminated and one that is, 990% of the people are going to pick the one that's laminated because it looks better, right? There's all benefits from that, from abrasion resistance to even how it applies if you're a vehicle installer. If you try to take a piece of vinyl that's not been laminated versus something that's got a little bit body built up with the laminate on the top of it, it makes it just so much easier to install. And of course, it's going to give you chemical resistance. It's going to pop the colors if it's gloss. It'll kill colors if it's a display that's going under lighting. For losing the message, you've got a glare that's no longer going to be there. And really, it boils down to knowing what the customer's business is, and don't get caught just into the trap of buying or selling purely on price, because they may, in fact, I've run into customers here even, they may have bought a 200 or a 300 and they see the 600 or the 500 and they say they didn't realize that I can get a machine that allows me to swing out the arm to simply load and unload the laminator much easier than having to lift 45, 50 pounds of material onto the machine with a shaft.
I think with that feature alone, selling the swing out shaft to somebody that's never used a laminator before is a hard sell.
It could be overkill.
It's like, yeah, okay, I can just take it. It doesn't take that much longer. But if you had somebody that's been using it for like 3 years and they see the swing out shaft and they've been taking it off every time, they'd be like, why have I ever done it the other way? This is the worst thing I've ever done.
Exactly.
So, but it's so hard, like as somebody that's never used one before, when you're like, yeah, swing out shafts, like, okay, cool. And just like breezes right by them versus somebody that sees that for the first time when they've been doing it for years.
Agreed.
I think the same with like the rear slitters that you guys get put on your machines.
Yeah.
We run into that where a customer's just like had that issue, right? They're doing, trucks, right? They're just doing these huge graphics. They're laminating the whole roll and they just get it where it sticks and they're unrolling it at the end. It's all stuck together and they've just dealt with that for years. They just thought this is just part of the course.
That's part of what you do when you laminate, right?
And then they see that for the first time. They'll be like, why did nobody tell us about this? And, so those are features I think on our end that we see are ones that are easy to sell as a second laminator, but much harder to sell as a first laminator.
Correct.
Because
it's an upgrade for people that have been getting into just purely cold or have a base heat assist unit like our 300 is. I know we're going to get a little bit into like what's our most popular models and where do we see kind of the trends going. There is a gluttony of Asian product coming across the ocean and being sold under a myriad of different names. There are dealers out west that will sell or bring in their own containers and private label a laminator. There's a lot to a laminator and what makes the cost what it costs. We talked about features, but sometimes it's the simplicity of how to run it. We did a video a couple years ago with you guys where we talked about how the 600 series is a repeatable process. When we get customers that have never laminated for the first time and they set the machine up or you guys come and deliver it and then they're up to having to figure out how to run it, it's amazing how many people get stuck right at just the loading process, right? Well, if you add on top of the complexity for them of how to load it, then you start getting in how much pressure do I put on? What speed is comfortable for me to run? What's my most productive speed that I can run at? A lot of shops that you guys have and that we have across the country will just do things on a production level where they'll take a 150-foot roll, put it on a laminator, marry the two up and go. Literally walk away from that laminator for 20 minutes while everything is being produced. Not too far away where you're just ignoring it, but if the laminator is set up properly, and this is any brand, it's not just specific to GFP, you should be able to continuously run 150 feet without ever second guessing if that production or the quality of the finishing work that you're doing with that machine is giving you what you want. So
when he says a bunch of stuff's coming over from China,
I said
when you guys go to if anyone's going to Print United and you walk around Print United, when you start looking at these laminators, just take a picture of the first one that's like, oh, it's kind of like base model. When you go to the next one, it's going to be the exact same laminator, different color. And there's a lot of them. All they're doing is simply changing the color. You'll see a black one, you'll see a green one, you'll see a blue one.
Yeah.
And they're really they're not even changing any features and they're just shipping them and everybody's calling it their own name. I just saw one just recently. Like I knew exactly who else sells that exact same laminator. And so just be leery of it because who's really standing behind it if they're just simply reboxing it.
That's what it boils down to. So GFP started up in 2009 by a couple of executives from GBC, which had been around for 75 years and still around, owned by ACO. They wanted to, when the ACO acquisition happened and GBC was no longer going to be a standalone company by itself, there were these two gentlemen, Bob Pryor and Mitch Noble, who decided to try to get a connection with an overseas manufacturer, but yet have input into the engineering of it. So we got Bob Elliott, who was an ex-GBCer, and brought him into the fold to help us design our own equipment, basically using overseas manufacturing for assembly. But we built those machines initially, the 400 series, to be a good machine that could do both entry level as well as production level, with the idea on the long term, or the long-term plan to introduce more models that will give people either a less expensive option or a more expensive option with more features and bells and whistles. And that's where we are today. Bob and Mitch have both since retired from GFP, excuse me. But they left a really good legacy. And if you ask all the employees of GFP today, their years of experience in the laminating world, we would all probably be at 15 plus. So some of us at, like me, 30 years with multiple manufacturers. Our GM has been with GFP since the get-go. We've got our service manager who was with Seal and all these other different manufacturers, AGL, Royal Sovereign. We've just got a lot of combined experience. Now, why that's important is because we know the ins and outs of our equipment as well as other brands. And it's a lot easier to help customers through whether they're struggling with their current model, even if it's a GFP or not, or help make their decision for the next purchase upgrade. But really, at the end of the day, you're buying a machine based on a price, and is that value, a win-win for both GFP, the dealer, and the end user. But you're buying more than just a piece of hardware. You're buying the support that comes behind it. If anybody's ever bought a GFP and went to our website to kind of look up our models and so forth, we have a myriad of videos in our library portfolio that you can pick a model. It will walk you through setting it up. It'll walk you through loading the machine. It'll help you troubleshoot if you're getting wrinkles or silvering or whatever. And as far as I know right now, I don't think there's any other manufacturer that supports their products like we do. So you're not just buying a piece of hardware for the first year. You want this thing to last 10, 15, 20 years, and you need an organization that's going to back that up behind that. So
something I do at the shows, and something I probably do pretty well, is I'll look at like a GFP machine, then I'll look at another machine, and I'll talk to both of them. And what you find with GFP is they'll come out with something new, and everybody else say, "Oh, that's stupid." You came out with the bigger roller. "Oh, that's stupid." "Oh, that's stupid." Like, we have this roller, it works better. And then the following year, at Print United, guess what everybody has? Everybody has the bigger roller.
Slightly bigger.
And the same thing, like, so you can see like GFP's leading the charge when it comes to like, oh, they have slitters. Now everybody, the following year, what does everybody else have? Slitters. Like, so that's the way I look at it. And I look at it with printers too. Like, they'll talk bad about certain printers, and next thing you know, they're doing the same thing. Like, okay, well, they found out we've been doing this with the DTF machines, which are all new. Like, I'm looking at who's selling them, and then the next show I'm looking at who's selling them. It's not the same people. Okay, we got a problem. Like, right. So, but yeah, yours specifically, it's like, oh, we don't like how the, I think it was the handle turn. I can't remember what it was. And next thing you know, Royal Sovereign was trying to do it, and obviously they failed completely.
Yeah, well, they went
failed all the way to the.
They went from that one handle with the slots to the continuous wheel that would worm gear itself open and close that.
Yep. So after they talked bad about it, they went to it, but they went to it too late. They talked bad about it for too long, because now they're literally nowhere.
Yeah, they are.
So just speaking to what you just said about in terms of the experience that your team has, I had a situation where I was in a shop that had a laminator I literally had never heard of, and I called you actually originally and was like, what do I have no idea who to call. Like, I'd like to help these guys, but I don't know what to do with it. And you said to call Sam. They're like, just call Sam. He'll probably know how to do it. So I called him. I was like, hey, here's the model number. Here's what's going on. He was like, oh yeah, just do this, and this. It'll probably just work fine. And obviously not your laminator by any means. You might not even remember the story, but
it was wound backwards, right?
Yeah. So it was another brand of vinyl that we don't sell.
That's right.
Which also, you can still fix that. And yeah, they send them on the rolls, reverse wound. So you have to set it on the machine differently, and they couldn't figure out why it wasn't working the same way, because you have to put it on a little differently. But literally, I just called you, and you were like, yeah, just do this. It'll work fine. And then they did it, and they were like, yeah, it worked perfect. Like, sweet. I wouldn't have had any idea, but that gives you like an idea, like not even your equipment.
Yeah.
And you basically immediately knew, one, what machine I was talking about, and two, immediately knew what the issue was.
Right.
and they couldn't even get a hold of support from who they bought.
I
from.
do remember this. I remember it really clearly. It was somewhere.
I think they actually have a GFP now.
They do have a GFP now.
Yeah, I'd have to double check.
We got that piece of junk out of there.
Yeah,
put a new one in.
It was already. I mean, they had also cut into the roller, so that made it a lot. It's really easy to sell a laminator when they cut the rollers.
Wow.
Yeah, ideally, as a good business person, don't cut your roller. But if you do, we don't mind.
Yeah, we love to sell you.
We sell you a new one.
We'll talk about. So that's a good transition to rollers in general.
It is.
You have the entry-level machine and your higher-end machine have two different types of rollers, correct? Can you explain why there's a difference and why one is better than the other one?
Well, those are really good questions that don't come up very often. But when they come by our booth or they come to an open house here at Wensco and they see two different models and one has orange rollers and one has gray rollers. In our line, our silicone-infused rubber are going to be gray rollers. And those are more expensive to produce. They last longer. They're easier to maintain as far as cleaning them up, removing adhesive if you get adhesive stuck on it and so forth. But they're also more expensive if you wind up having to replace it, 10 years down the line. But we use that for the purpose of having, it's a term called durometer, and it's the firmness basically of the roll. And depending on, there's been so much an advancement with the medias and the inks and the type of printing like UV, where you're almost building up the ink on the surface, unlike EcoSolvent where it kind of brandishes it into the vinyl and creates a flat feel, or latex or whatever. But the silicone roller in our lineup is going to give you more conformity to an uneven surface. So if you're doing reflective film, which has lenses in it, if you're doing UV printing that has built up texture, if you want to laminate something that was created for a braille application and just give it protection from fingerprints or whatever, those silicone rollers are going to give you more conformity in conjunction with either a better film, like a cast overlam, or a little bit of heat. Now, it doesn't mean that if you have a natural rubber roller from us, which is our 300s and 200s, that you can't do UV printing. It's just you're going to need to probably turn on that feature of that heat assist, which you can't get from the 200, but you can with the 300.
I also heard UV run it twice. Have you heard that?
To laminate it twice?
Yeah. With
the one film on top and then run it through with just that single ply?
Yeah, turn the heat up.
I haven't heard that, but
I just heard that recently. I thought it was hogwash.
Seems really cumbersome.
But I heard it from a manufacturer.
That makes sense.
Maybe they have a crappy laminator.
But they're not laminating it with two layers of film.
No.
Okay.
They're basically running it through high heat and then running it through high heat again. Just rerunning the whole roll right back through high heat.
Weird.
And
I haven't heard that.
Specific to like layered UV.
I won't say the name of the company, but I thought it was hogwash. And then I'm like, well, then I thought about it for a second. Maybe they just sell a crappy laminator. And they might.
Could be. Or they could be, the as important as the laminator and the quality of the roller is what you're laminating with. There's, as everybody knows, a myriad of different calendared laminates out there, right?
It did look a lot like all those Chinese models.
Could very well be.
Like the same.
And the size of the roller matters. Not just the actual rubber itself, but the actual diameter of that roller. I won't name the name, but there's machines out there that are as expensive as 80 grand. If you look at those main rollers, you're talking 10, 12 inches in diameter. The bigger the roller, the more steel or aluminum you got to build into that roller, the more surface you're going to have with the coating that's on it. But you can also typically run faster with less need for dwell time when you are running heat, because the film has stayed with that film or that roller longer. But yeah, the cost of the equipment is not just features driven. It's related to the size of the roller, the type of rubber that you're using, the simplicity or complexity of how you raise and lower that roller. There's a lot of pneumatic machines out there from the late 80s all the way up till still today, being made. We find that with a little bit more control of that handle or an electronic raising and lowering the roller, you have more micro adjustments rather than something like that old brand you were talking about with the notches. You are literally slave to that those specific gap settings. So it's a little bit harder to create a better bond or create more even pressure from those rollers. The bigger the rollers, the more expensive it's going to be no matter what. So if you look at our higher end machines like the 5 and 600, you're talking about rollers that are 4.5, 5.5 inches in diameter. Where if you get into the 200s or even like say the 230, we introduced that new 220. Those rollers are 2 inches in diameter, but it's got to be relatively inexpensive to get into those models. And the only way to really cut back isn't so much to try to eliminate features, but it's to make those the main core of that machine less expensive. Rollers typically are about a third to a quarter of, or a third to maybe 40% of the cost of the machine.
That's what we've seen that's why we're talking about people cutting into them and usually replacing them, is because, especially on the heat assist ones, the cost to replace some of those is so high that if you've already had it for like 5 years, you're like, am I going to spend this much to replace half my machine, or am I going to just get a new machine? Because then I know it will work. So that's usually how that comes about if you have a heat assist one. Right. Or you have one that you got from another manufacturer that we've been joking about this whole time, that they don't even make that model anymore. So that happens frequently. So
there's a lot of used equipment out on the market, and even some dealers will take in trades and then try to resell those units.
We take some in, especially if they bought it from us and they want to upgrade. Most of the time we'll give them a fair price to send
swap
it back
towards something.
We've even brought some. We've bought some back that had slit in their rollers.
Yeah,
knowing that we've already bought another one that has some mechanical issues, and then remake and resell.
Yeah. I think what you can see from our used equipment that I think is interesting is the used equipment that we take back is equipment that lasts the longest. That's the whole reason it comes back, right? If you went through our used list right now, there's really going to be, there might be 3 brands on there, but honestly, there's probably 2.
It's probably only Roland and GFP.
Yeah.
No GrafTech.
So GrafTech would be on the list, except they also last so long that we don't even get them back.
Right.
they don't even want to give them, the cost on the equipment is so low that our buyback prices, they might as well just have a backup. So with them, it's the same thing. They just last forever.
Yeah. I would say
that's the case with most of the equipment that we have is used. If you see it as used equipment on our site, just know that equipment's going to last forever. That's the only reason we're buying it back. So I say that to you guys, obviously. We already talked about that with Roland's podcast, but
we've had, I would say in the last year, ever since our main competitor went under in September, besides the influx of those dealers coming to us and having the product, what we've really seen is a lot of 20-year-old models being turned in or discarded or being added to, and they're using or relegating it to doing a single function, right? That is one, if I can drive one message home, and that is for any production shop, because you own a laminator, don't think that that's the end of the story.
Yep.
They might have 4 printers and they're investing in, gel ink with the Colorado, or they're getting the latest, Roland or Muto or whatever. If they've got multiple print engines, they're forcing a lot of vinyl and other products through a finishing device, whether it be for a work table or they're doing roll laminating or whatever it is. If you change your film over often, from gloss to matte to cast to calendar to 60 to 54, it really does, at the prices that you're being asked to pay, it makes sense for people to have a second, maybe even a third device. I was in a shop today, they bought a second laminator from you guys for the very purpose of having their 4 Epsons run their vinyl through those laminators, and instead of tying it all up through one machine, they can take twice the productivity, and they're talking about a $7,000 investment. It's not a huge ask.
A big one with that one, honestly, is even if you just have 2 applications, right? We have a customer, a perfect example of this, right? They run 1105 and they run 2105 Avery, right? So they run cast and they run calendar.
Yeah.
And they only run 2 laminates. They only run gloss, right? But the cost to swap them out is relatively expensive. We're talking, you're losing a couple feet probably every time you swap them.
We say 15%. If you change the roller over more than twice, you probably are putting about 15% waste factor into your build costs because of the leader and the tail that you have to get it to exit the machine, depending on the operator, how experienced they are, if they're able to do it really quickly. And there's ways. We have videos that show people how to web the material. I show people how to do a different method. And it's really what, makes sense for whatever the customer feels most comfortable with. But if they are changing that film over more than twice, they're probably wasting about 15 points, 15% of their cost. So $1,000 wrap kit, you're talking $150 That's a lot of money.
Yeah, every time.
You can justify a cost of a laminator really quickly.
Yeah, at $150 a piece. Yeah. Kidding. And time too. I mean, we've talked about this 100 times on this podcast. Time. Like,
yes, it's such a forgotten thing. Like, your time is valuable. We've said it 1,000 times. Like we talk about it even in the sense of when you go home, like the things that you do at home. Like, can you pay someone to do it, and is your time more valuable than what you can pay someone to do it? Because there's people that can do things better than you,
of course,
or faster than you.
Grass.
That's exactly.
Some people love being outside and raking and mowing themselves, but all of our neighbors pay somebody to do it. I enjoy doing it, so I go out and do it myself in the summertime and the fall. But
I don't like doing it.
Same principle behind it.
And my yard takes a long time. A lot of it's my fault. Like, I was stupid. Like,
that's not great.
I planted an orchard in the back, like 15 trees. You should plant them in a row. Anybody else that's going to do this,
there's a reason they do it.
Not random like I did. Because it takes you 3 times as long to mow when they're not in a row.
Oh, I thought you were going to say pick up all the fallen fruit and stuff.
No, we don't
shoot those to the mower.
Yeah,
well, actually, the deer eat them all.
But back to that, it's your time. Like if I spend 2 hours a week or 3 hours a week mowing, what else could I do with it? 2 or 3 hours?
No doubt.
Or I have to hustle home. I have to get this done. So yeah, time is valuable even in your shops. Like, I just heard I was just listening to a business guy saying he works 3 full-time days. So he works from like 5 to noon. He considers that a day. Like, so he's cramming everything into one day, and then he works, 12:30 to 5:30. He's cramming all that into a day, and then 6 o'clock to midnight. So he says he works 3 days to everybody's 1.
Jeez.
But the reality is, it's a good concept where he's cramming everything into a shorter day and then starting another day. And I don't know if I can do that. I try to do that sometimes. Like, you get up at 3.
You're the hardest working guy in this industry. I guarantee it.
You probably can't see this, but my watch says 5:48. That's PM for you guys that are here. We literally started recording this it was after 5 already.
After
like, that's how it works here. So
I came from Milwaukee this morning.
Right. Yeah, literally got off the little, what do they call that thing?
The Lake Express. I took the Lake Express from Milwaukee to Grand Rapids.
Yeah. And then came here and we literally started recording. He was here literally less than 5 minutes and we were already recording.
Right,
so that gives you an idea.
Got an engine like no one else.
Yeah. So yeah, your time's valuable. If you have one, it might be worth looking at.
It is. It really is.
But I mean, we've covered, I think exactly 2 questions of the 8 I have on here, and we're 40 minutes in. So we'll do these last couple ones. We'll probably have to do a follow-up episode at some point, which is good.
I mean, we can be shorter with our answers.
Well, you're coming back sometime, Sam.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not a one-time deal.
Yeah, that's true.
Minnesota,
you can come back.
Minneapolis to Grand Rapids.
We'll try and plan it a little better next time for you. But so let's go through, like you talked about earlier. What's the current like GFP lineup look like now? If you want to, I think we probably covered most of them, but just to give the full rundown.
When we got started in 2009, we launched a 55 and a 63-inch version of the 400 series. Why we started at the 400, I don't know, but it made sense at the time. We split the 400 into the 300 and the 500. The 500 looks more like the old 400 does. It only comes in a 63-inch width, but we made a more affordable version of the 400 by making the 300. We did take away the silicone roller and gave you a natural rubber roller, but we made it bigger. We put the heat assist in it. And it's our most popular model. And it's primarily because it's available in 2 sizes, 55 and 63. The price point, but for those customers that with Rollins or Mamakis or Mutos or EcoSolvent printers, they can do the heat assist with those units. Plus, and the one thing that doesn't get spoken about enough, in my opinion, is the rear take-up rail for doing a true roll-to-roll. If you have a 300, you can go roll-to-roll, whether that's anything more than like 15 feet, and you've got your graphics rolled up onto a core, slide it onto the shaft, feed it through the machine, marry it up the laminate, and everything will come out the back end re-spooled. It allows you to take it over your plotter. If you're doing 500 stickers, it makes weeding it and die cutting it so much easier if it's all in one rolled up tube. If it comes out the back end and you got to roll it up by hand, or it's going to hit the floor, it's more than likely going to collect dust, or it can get kinked. And it's a much better system for doing anything more if you've got prints that are 15 feet or longer. If you're doing sheet fed, and all of our machines will go roll to roll from the 300 up, but if you're doing sheet fed, which most entry level customers are doing, they're hand feeding one print at a time. we always recommend trying to match up the laminate with the width of the vinyl. And even if you've got some blank white space on there, it's better than trying to cut it down and then sending it through something that's wider than what you're trying to laminate, just because you don't want that adhesive to stick to the bottom roller. But so the 400 was the first machine. We split that into the 2 and the 300s. We have our entry-level machine that's the 200. It's available in a 20, 30, 55, and a 63-inch width. And one of the comment I would like to make, most printers are 54, but most companies that buy a printer, unless it's very specific and they know they're not going to vary from that decision, most people upgrade down the line into a 60-inch printer. So what we suggest, especially if you don't plan on investing into more than one printer at a time, is buy a machine, a laminator for tomorrow rather than for today. It's about, on the 200 series, it's only $600 difference. And you're going to get a machine that can allow you to grow into it with the width. That's what's nice about the 200. There's a lot of variations. The BN20, I don't know if there's a still 30-inch Roland being produced.
Yep, that's G.
Yep. So you've got a machine for that. You've got the 55 and the 63. The 300 comes with the heat assist and the rear take-up reel, and you've got a 55 and a 63-inch version of that. But you're talking about base models where you got removability of the shafts to load and unload. There's no slitters. There is the take-up reel on the 300. The 500 is really where we start getting into a little bit more productivity or conveniences that the customer really values. Maybe they've got, and I'm not trying to make this the sexist thing, but let's say they've got a woman or a man even that weighs 110 pounds and they're asked to lift a 60-pound roll of film onto the machine. It's cumbersome. And if they change that over often enough, they can start to get aches and ailments, right? So those swing out shafts on the 500 and up make a huge difference. The 600, which is my favorite machine because of its simplicity of installation. It's a full cabinet unit, wheels right out of the crate. All you do is make 2 connections with the foot pedal and the control panel. It gives you more features that manage your business better for you. One of the things, if you walk into any shop and any wrap company or anybody that has lots of printers and lots of laminate film around, they've got 20, 30, 40, 50 remnant rolls. Well, the 600 allows you to count the number of feet or footage that you're running through your day. So at the end of the day, if you run 260 feet, you know exactly how much that operator was running if you want to safeguard against them not doing the work or whatever. But it's really there to help manage the inventory that they're spending thousands of dollars, to have available when the call comes in that they need to have that product. There's a label printer on it that gives you the ability to identify what it is that they've run, but it tells you if you enter the starting length, how much is remaining on that roll. So being able to manage a very costly part of anybody's business, which is or partial rolls, it allows you to no longer have to second guess if I have enough material to run this, roll. Just discard something if it's like 3 feet or under or whatever. I'm not trying to say waste your money, but it's a way to manage those dollars that most people don't have any clue as to how much they've got tied up into it. But really the repeatability, we call it smart technology, but I call it repeatability. With presets in speed, temperature, and gap or pressure, the operator will be able to go up to the screen and just hit a few buttons and have everything set up to run today, tomorrow, and the next day without ever varying from what worked from them the day before. Where on the 500, 300, and 200, there's a little guesswork because you don't have specific temperature dial readouts. You don't have presets for the gap setting, knowing exactly how much pressure's on there. One of your questions is, how do I eliminate wrinkles and bubbles in my prints? Because that is one of the biggest complaints people get.
Laminate right. It's simple. Use your machine correctly. It's simple.
Or go to our website or YouTube. We have a really good YouTube channel as well, if you haven't been there. It's usually from over-pressurizing the rollers or not webbing the material properly in the very first place. A lot of people, I think, throw around the term user error too freely. It can be a machine issue. There's no doubt about it. If you over-pressurize the roller, you can cause that product to go through the machine and cinch up in the middle, almost looking like a boat had passed right through the center and left a wake in its path, right? Or if you have bubbles on one side and you're getting nice flat productivity on the left side, there's a really good chance that you might need a nip adjustment. And a nip adjustment is not uncommon. It's not a broken machine. We make it really easy to make a nip adjustment because it is a worm gear, and all you have to do is disengage those gears, turn your bottom horizontal gear left or right. You'll see the roller literally go up or down, and you want to get an eye view of matched gap when you have the roller separated. If you're in warranty, we cover all of that. There's no need for you to, freak out and think you're going to have to wait 2 years or take it upon yourself to fix it. Wensco, I'm sure, will step up and
there's many times we've went out and done a nip adjustment. And people almost feel bad because you go in, you walk in, and
15 minutes.
10 minutes later, we've got it running perfect. They're like, well, and that was counting rerunning the roll. Like we had it fixed in 5 minutes from time, but the reality is what you don't know, and and we've obviously seen a lot more of them than they have.
And nip adjustments are not complicated, but they're a real big cause for a lot of customers to be frustrated because maybe the installing dealer never calibrated the rollers. Not every machine needs to be calibrated.
Not here, Sam.
I know.
Not here.
I know.
That's the guy across town.
Well, in all honesty, this is the truth. There are a lot of dealers that don't have service personnel, right? So when you're making a decision, if you've decided that GFP is the right machine for you, I would talk to, the guy that's going to be able to, or who's going to properly set it up, make sure that the rollers are true, come out, show me how to operate it. We've had more calls into our service department because someone doesn't really know how to access some of the information, like webbing tips or wrinkle tips that we would have on our website. But they call our service department saying, I just got this machine. The dealer really didn't show me much. They just said, go to the GFP website, right? Well, they want somebody to kind of hold their hand a little bit more. And that's really where I think we excel. And it's not because of the need to fix our machines out of the box. It's just that there really isn't a lot of great support, either from the number of people or the corporate bureaucracy that might come from a really large company, that it's tough to get a hold of somebody to give you a quick answer. And we're there on the ready. I mean, I don't remember the last time something took longer than 30 minutes to get back to, whether it's a service call or a sales call, somebody's going to be on it right away. So, pressure comes down to the right setting, or wrinkles and bolt wakes and things like that come down to the right setting and making sure the rollers are true. I would say 90, and I don't know this as a real number, but I'm guessing 95 to 98% of the machines that come out of the box are ready to go. But every once in a while through, transportation, if you got it from the dealer, it was on a box truck, it traveled, 4 hours to be delivered. There's a good chance that through that travel, you might have had some.
We haven't dropped that many of them. Seriously, Tater dropped that one not too long ago.
I wish it was a joke.
We haven't dropped that many.
Dropped that many. Yeah. Usually we're pretty good about it. We also usually strap them down in the trailers.
Not all the time.
Sometimes you get there and they're sitting in the back of the trailer. You don't know how it got there.
Or
so if that's the case,
that may have happened. Or you get there and you don't even have to worry about it. The back window's shattered right open.
I don't think that was a GFP, but that has happened before. So
if you're buying brand new, I would say talk to your dealer, give them an order for a roll so you have something there to practice. Don't worry about you getting immediate work out the door right away. You'll be able to, by the time that they leave, the dealer leaves, you'll be able to produce product. But
it's pretty safe to say if you're struggling with your laminator, you probably didn't buy it from us.
Yeah. To be fair, we're pretty good at it at this point. We've been selling GFP a long time. So
yeah. And we just invested some time with your service team to make sure that they're going through the checks and balances. Yeah.
A few new people, so that could be an issue. But if they didn't get it the first time, they can ask any of the other techs and they'll usually know pretty quickly. But what separates, as complicated as they look, there's not a whole lot to them actually.
Correct.
You're right. You're talking about new people. It really is one of the, when you look at a laminator for the first time, it is one of the least user-friendly things I've ever seen in the sign industry. You just look at it and be like, I don't know, there's 6 rollers on this thing. What could possibly these things all be for? And there's 3 things that hold cores, and you're just looking at it like, I have no idea. Right. But once you see it like one time, you were talking, they all kind of look the same. Once you've webbed one laminator, they all kind of web the same. You just pretty much get an idea. As long as you know which end it is, it's just real fast. But that's that's the experience you get when you have techs that have done this well,
Yes.
right? Is you feel bad because they go in and they have to make a 5-minute call, but it's like, we've done this 100 times, right? Like it's very simple. It's not like, and we could have potentially walked you through it, but it would have taken us longer than it took us to drive there, do it, and drive back. It would have taken us longer over the phone to do it. So
Right.
sometimes it's easier. So that's one of the benefits. But the last question I have, which you kind of just answered it, but I'll let you give an official answer. Why should someone look at a GFP laminator versus looking at a competitor's?
Well, I think the number one thing you're selling, whether you're the manufacturer, the dealer, or what you're buying, if you're the end user, is value. The overall value of what you're getting for the money that you're spending, right? I mean, how long is the laminator going to last? What's the company that's behind it that I bought it from that's going to help support me? The manufacturer, how's that going to be? You know, we had nightmare stories in like early December about customers that just got machines delivered to them, and it was busted on delivery, and there was no recourse for them. They couldn't call anybody because the company they bought it from no longer existed. And it doesn't happen very often that companies go under, but the point being is that it's really about having that support from the dealer or from the manufacturer or a combination of the both, and knowing that you're getting a quality product and just making decisions on what you can afford versus the features and benefits that you can justify buying if you want to spend a little more. There's a lot of $25,000 laminators out there that I'm not going to disparage and say they're garbage, because they're not. And I was in that world for 15 years with, GBC. We sold, $40,000 or $25,000 laminators all the way up to $55,000. And it was back in the day when there wasn't a lot of options, and the options have become so plentiful now because people are importing. They attend a trade show, they hear a company that has got a machine, it's $1,800, they buy it, they have a problem with it, and then where do you get the parts from, or who's going to help support that? And that really is what it boils down to. How much experience are you going to get from the dealer and from the manufacturer on what you're buying? And is the value that you're spending worth what you're getting in return for it? So that's really what it boils down to, is that we have an affordable product with a lot of features and a tremendous support staff to help you guys get your work done productively and with as little headache as possible.
Perfect.
That's pretty simple.
Yeah, it really is.
Like I said, we've been selling GFPs a long time now. So,
and there used to be washing machines that were basically laminators, right? Back in the day, you'd get your tub of suds and stuff, and then you'd run it through a wringer, squeeze all the water out. Well, that's really what a laminator is, right? Yeah. You're just mirroring two plies together and trying to do it quickly with as little, errors you can get by with. And you ask any of the experienced shops, they're doing things without ever messing things up because they've just become accustomed to doing how to
that's
do
true. Once what we see the trend is they get a laminator. They may have a call within the first week or two, but once they make it past like week 2, we rarely ever hear from any of the GFP customers. Like they've got it, they figured it out, we've showed them, and you don't hear again till like they need another one, or there's like, okay, do you have something faster now? Like, well, I've seen this out there. Now they have slitters. Now they have this. That's other than that. Yeah, even parts, we rarely have, like in comparison, we rarely have repairs for them. Like they just continue to run.
You don't worry about greasing things up. If you are really concerned about chain lubrication and gear, greasing and all that kind of stuff, we can certainly walk you through that. But these are meant to give you 15 years of productivity, if not longer, if you take care of it. A little less if you don't. But a lot of times that people upgrade within that window of 10 to 12 years, they're usually doing it because they want today's greatest features, right?
And not because it's not working anymore.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which is, we talk about rolling over, same thing, right? We're buying machines that are super old because they're like, yeah, this one still works,
right?
But, it's probably time to get a new one, right? It's not like I need one. It's like, it's probably time. Yeah. Like it just happens sometimes. So
yeah.
Anyways, I think that's a pretty good summary.
Yeah. So. It's an overview. We can get certainly more deep into the woods, but those are conversations at open house events.
There's probably still 5 questions.
We can probably tag their YouTube channel, all that stuff on here too, can't we?
Yeah.
For sure. Yep. Rick will get it in the in the
Thanks, Rick.
description, the product description. He's not even here. We can't yell at him. No water got spilled during this episode. So
Yeah, he was pulling out as I was pulling in to get my day started.
Well, now that it's 6, you got 6:30 even.
So anyways, we successfully had our new longest episode. So thank you, Sam.
Sweet.
55 minutes.
I don't normally run at the mouth, although I can. I don't normally.
Yeah. So it was, but it was good. I mean, hopefully. I mean, if
can
you're
I
still
throw
here,
my name and number out there again?
Yeah, sure.
So if you guys have any questions about GFP in general, I'm happy to take phone calls. My name is Sam Crosby. You can reach me at sam.crosby@gfpartners, that's plural, llc.com. Or you can call me on my cell at 612-414-4335. Our 800 number if you want to just check stock, if you want a brochure sent to you, if you need a direction to our website, whatever it is 800-986-2005. We have the best customer service department in the indindustry, bar none.
Besides Wensco.
Yeah, second to
Manufacturers.
Manufacturer. Okay, that's better.
But if you have questions, you can also reach out to Wensco, and we'll either get you in touch with Sam or we'll get you in touch with the sales rep who can then get you in touch with Sam too. So whatever's easiest for you guys. If you're not, unfortunately, out of Wensco's territory and you're listening to this podcast, first, I'm sorry. And second of all, get a hold of Sam.
Come see us at Print United or at Wensco's open houses. They all start in the month of September.
Perfect. I mean, this will this will come out probably right before the open houses. I probably should have been promoting the open house in these.
Dang it.
You guys do a good job of that
stuff. They're coming up soon.
I got the email blast.
All right. Thank you much.
Thank you guys for watching.
Take care,
see you
guys.
in the next episode.
See you.
Bye.